So I'm coming off of a big day yesterday of just so much love that I woke up today of just feeling this overflowing amount of abundance that I had to just calm down for a little bit just because I had to let all that love integrate. And it got me reflecting on the discombobulation that's going on in the world. So I thought I would share some of my thoughts of for people who are having a really tough time of it. And that's the thing is everybody's having a different experience of what's going on in the world, and everybody's trying to compare and contrast and measure and figure out who's evil, who's bad, who's good. And it's very discombobulating. And I really have found myself to have an aversion to politics. And I thought I would share just my perspective on politics and a way to look at it, different ways to look at it, because that's what really I woke up to today was, in the beginning of my spiritual journey, I started with the law of attraction and having things in vision boards, and you know what, I woke up today and I don't have my yachts and not vacationing down in Mexico all the time and living in my mansions and all of those things. But yet I've got this other problem where I'm having to take a little time to settle myself down because my heart is just so fluttered with love, and I just feel so complete and whole and abundant that it oozes out of me everywhere, and I want to share it with everybody. And I know my journey took many years, and I don't think it needs to take years. I don't need any credit for how long it took me to slice away at the journey. And that's what I love about being where I'm at now is um, being able to see that perspective is really the abundance. If we're looking at lack, from the eyes of who I started out to be, that wanted all the things, chase all the things, and bring money and mansions and everything else. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I know that's not what my soul wanted, because I know I followed my soul. And there's just some great ideas that if we're suffering, it's from a lack of perspective. And that's what I figured out is that there's a gazillion different ways to look at things and perspective that we can find. But when we're trying to pinpoint and say this is the meaning of life and then try to get everybody to follow that, we can see that the world can't follow other perspectives, chasing money and things. But we can be abundant in perspective. And really, it's just about getting out of this and getting into this. And by the way, this is, if you're going to show people that you're connected to their hearts, this is how you do it. Palm up. That's the heart. So maybe this will be the first thing we talk about. Here's a different perspective on kind of the ego way of looking at things. Because we have people in our lives who are really involved in politics, and we know that they have well-meaning and good intentions behind everything. that there's a lack of heart, of actually bringing it down into the heart. So I think of people and myself when I'm like this or when I was like this, and that is exactly what I would say, that I would say that I always intended to be kind, to be all the things that I feel like I've found and dropped into. I'm those things now. But before, I had the intention, and this is where I say that intention isn't necessarily the ends to the mean. My intention was always to be a good person and to be kind and loving. And I got caught up in politics. And I would say that what I was connecting myself to back then was my mind heart. It was being captured by the mind. And what it took, what I recognize now to crack this open, to be vulnerable to my heart, is something completely different. And so just to recognize that people that are engaging in politics with fervor and anger and such righteousness, the way to look at them is that they are operating from heart, but it's just the heart that they're creating from their mind. It's not actually coming from here. And that's my first impression is to, this is where to go. This is what we want to expand this vessel. But we're always kind of in this war between the mind and the heart until we get the whole being in alignment. And the gut's involved too. That's our intuition. We know it. We know that we can follow our gut as well. So the way to look at politics and what's going on, it's really the first thing to look at is, if you're angry, you have to understand that your anger is very clouding. And your anger is useful to messages of hate. Because then we get wrapped up in the love of hate, and that any kind of hate comes from the mind heart. It's not coming from here. So my suggestion is, my first thing is, if you want to be a powerful change with politics, is the first thing you have to understand is that if you're waking up every day to figure out what bad things the administration is doing, you are going to constantly be in a state of discombobulation. And that's exactly what they want. They want people in a fervor. They want people that are scared, that are operating from fear, they're operating from anger. So start recognizing where your attention is. Where is your attention? Is your attention masked by anger and fear? And then do you pass on every little thing every day to show your discontent and try to get everybody else's discontent? Because that's how we're in the United States, that's how we're in this thing, is that people are discombobulated, and it's how they can be controlled. And so first thing is, don't look at the furthest reach. Don't look at the character at the top. That is where the dance is being, that's where they want all of the attention. Bring the attention back. bring a lot of your attention away from that, if not all of your attention away from those characters, because they're just caricatures, they're little cartoons, and they're going to play their little part. And the thing is if you don't want to be part of their orchestra, because if you can imagine, this is what they're doing with discombobulated, scared, angry people. They are just going, here's where we're going to move you next. This is where we're going to move you next. This is where you're going to be moved next. So if you wanted to, if you still need to, if you feel the calling to be connected to change through politics, is bring it locally. Bring it locally. Make the most local politics the most important politics. Because that's where, if you're changed and you're working from your heart and you're not discombobulated, you've got your posture, because that's the thing that anger does, is it doesn't have any spine, because it's flailing about with its knives and its forks and whatever else it's going to use as a weapon. And bring it locally, and pick topics, because that's the other thing, is the overwhelm. There's just going to be massive overwhelm gifted out for, that's part of the caricatures that are going to constantly be throwing something else, bait, 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 bait. But it's really, and the thing about bringing this back is, this is the thing that was so discombobulating in our politics, was the minute that the Oval Office became the most important thing, then we started to project all of our fears, all of the control we wanted to make for our own type of freedom, some version of freedom. We throw it to the greatest, to the furthest reach we can. It's projecting all of that to the furthest reach. So what we're doing is we pull that back and we go local. Go as local as we can. Be as stubborn as you want to be with what you want to see in leadership from the most local place that you can. You need a little bit of time too. If you're a person that's really upside down and really reeling every day, to take a little bit of a break and just say, you got to recombobulate your discombobulation to be any good. Anger is such, and fear is such a masking. It masks perspective, and that's the greatest thing that we need. I mean, if people had just recognized that, we wouldn't be in this perspective. But being right and being angry all the time gave life to the characters that were playing out there. So just think about that. That's another way to look at it. Is that's kind of the way that I see it. Is, we're all just characters playing a role in this world. And I used to have the perspective that I needed to figure out which ones were the bad ones and which ones were the good ones. And eventually I came to peace with, I'm in this world and I'm playing a role. I'm playing a character, and it's not my job to figure out who's right and wrong, who are the bad ones and the good ones. And I figured out that I couldn't figure that out anyway if I wanted to. But it's just to recognize these characters exist. And in that, that's how I fell in love with all the characters. Is just understanding that everybody's playing their role, and it's like, okay, that's your role this time. All right, I understand. But when we really understand what the roles are, we understand how the characters animate themselves. And there are characters that they live on hate. They live by, I define hate and prejudice the same. They need people, or the character connects with people's the same privilege or prejudice and hate, and connect with that, and then keep them up here in the mind heart, and then they animate how they actually continue to animate in the world is by being hated by other people. So they literally become buoyant. They get all their attention and they get all their relevancy from hate. And one thing to understand about these characters is our responsibility in that. Because when I was egocentric and I lived from the mind heart, I was voting for that stuff. I was voting from my idea of what I needed to hate. It's just kind of forced upon you in politics. Is like, especially in the United States, it's like you had to choose the lesser of two evils. And because they didn't represent the deeper values that I had. So I had to get on board with people and ideas that I wasn't fully connected to. But understanding that from that egocentric perspective that's trying to deliver right and wrong, the thing that we want from that point of view is relevancy. So all the characters that are coming from the mind heart and following these caricatures, these characters at the top, and wanting to throw their flags around, their political wins, to project all of their pain and suffering on an abstract enemy that they create. It's all just a call for relevancy. And so if all these, it's like, that's when we have to say, am I moving forward? Am I trying to knock this person down off the pedestal because I want to be relevant? And that's all the character at the very top wants. And if they find a way to find relevancy in any manner possible, well, that's what their character does. But it allows us, and it's allowed me to come to peace with the fact that I know what that character is up to. And I use that as when I feel hatred, if I feel any hatred towards that person or that character, that's when I look and say, wait a minute, what's inside of me that needs to do that? Because that's a beautiful thing to come to understand, that probably the greatest thing that you can do is not animate those characters. I see those characters as being puppets, and they're animated by our energy. And if I don't give them my energy, I'm playing a big part of not allowing that to happen. But it's not just my voice. On social media or whatever else, screaming at that person every day, that character every day. It's that I wake up every day and I live the truth from the tenderized heart I have from understanding all of this. And that comes with all the connections that I make locally around the people that are around me. It means I can connect to those people, even if they're living in their mind heart. it's kind of interesting making this video is because I do wake up and I want to help people. And it doesn't come from a place of, it used to be a place of relevancy. But now it's more of, I want to help people because it's like an activation. I know that when I can tweak somebody's perspective, it opens up a pathway to abundance and connecting deeper to this realm and enjoying. I like to have other people enjoying this world with me. I'll leave this on one last thought about caring. This is something a mentor of mine years and years ago shared with me, and he was talking about becoming carefree, but he was trying to find words. He used the French word insouciant, but it's carefree, and that was really hard for my mind, heart, my ego to wrap itself around, because I'm like, no, I care, I gotta care about these things. But I understand it now. I understand it very well. And it's especially salient in these times as we see people flailing about, screaming at each other, like, you gotta care about this, because this one person, it's like everything. You've gotta care about this. You've gotta care about this. You gotta care about this. And people are talking about this now as you don't have it. It's like everybody's saying care and put all of your empathy is another idea, is put your empathy here, put your empathy here. And finally, people just are frozen. People are getting frozen. And I think I want to make a video about this. But it's a great opportunity to look at how this works, is that we aren't meant to sit and try to figure out everybody's problem, to care about everybody's problem. The best way that I can articulate this now is being connected to the deepest level of caring. Because people try to manipulate you, and they try to manipulate me into telling me what I should care about, what I should think is important. And they try to do that through a political mind. It can be, to control, to get, because we're all kind of trying to say, this is where we should go with reality. This is where we should go with reality. And we're either coming from up here or we're coming from here. Or we're coming from kind of the space in between, where we're trying to figure that out. So connecting to the deep care, to me, it's being careful with capital letters and full, F-U-L-L, careful. It's like a tethering. It's a connected to that, to where I don't need my mind every day or ever to tell me, should I care about this person's problem today or not? And that's the other thing, is that once we find that, we figure out that we can feel it. Because people oftentimes are trying to get us to care about things from their mind, their own created reality, and they just want us to agree with that suffering, that idea of pain. But you can feel it. I've had people cry in front of me. I feel nothing. No connection. Because you can cry from your head. It's the same way as like humor. Humor can come from wit, can come from the head, and it doesn't connect with people sometimes. But you know it when you get a belly laugh. There's something deeper. And then I can have somebody break into tears, and my whole heart just is ringing. The light comes on and I feel it. And the way that I would articulate that is that I found care. Careful. I'm careful. So anyway, I wish you well. I wish everyone well. And that's a beautiful saying that I love saying all the time. Because it used to be, I didn't want to say nice things about characters that I thought were wrong. But we understand that they're just playing a character. It's like I want to wish them well. Wellness comes from wholeness. So I wish them well. And I don't try to figure out what their path is to that. That's not for me to figure out. I can be only a small part of it, or what part of it that they choose to connect with me. So, I wish you wellness. Have a magnificent day.